Here we are. Friday night, end of the week, end of the working week, and programming. By the way, I just noticed that on that sort of intro thing, I'm wearing a Drumeo t-shirt. That's just a coincidence. I'm not. I'm not. I subscribed to Drumeo years ago, and I got a T-shirt. So I've been there and bought the T-shirt. Literally, they don't sponsor me. I mean, why would they? Anyway, I hope you are well. And where we were left last time was that I was doing a rather gnarly thing about creating a function that would, given a direction, would be able to calculate, well, two points, calculates the direction as a number from 0 to 15, and that to do that efficiently required basically a set of if statements. Quite a lot. Well, they're not if statements, they're conditional branches in assembly, and that was quite a little bit tedious, but I got there, and here's a demo of it. As you can see, this this enemy now has some kind of AI behavior to it. It's chasing me, and it's using that. Which is great. So now I was doing a little bit of refactoring offline because some things were bothering me, like for example the assembly mode of Emacs that I was using. I found something online, a modification to it that makes it behave a little better, and then I'm trying to organize the sprites again, as in the allocation of the sprites from the array of sprites for things like shots and enemies, because Alan, I think it's Alan or Adam, sorry, I can't remember now. I always get those two names confused. Basically played the game on the using the emulator, played the game that this was published as, which was Astro Warrior by some publisher, I can't remember who, the publisher that didn't like the letters on the game Letteroids. So pretty much ruined the game. But he played that one, and he said that the enemy letters can shoot each other, which means there must have been two enemies. So I needed to restructure this if I'm going to recreate as faithfully as possible the original game. Then I need to be able to have more than one enemy. So that's what we're going to do, multiple enemies. But so I've done that reorganization, but now when I try and fire, I end up corrupting things. So I'm trying to fight. Look, there we go. The letter B. Weird stuff going on with the letter B. Really strange. So I've got to debug that now. And what it is it's the letter B, because I have two shots, and so I have an offset which is incorrect. It's going over the letters and then corrupting the letters. So one thing I want to do first of all, to see if I can figure this out, I'm going to comment out draw shots and see if there's any corruption that if I get any corruption at all. Where if I don't draw the shots. So is the problem the graphics, or is the problem the logic code? And I'm not seeing any problems there. So it's the draw shots routine, probably. Usually by now someone pops in and says hello, so I'm just going to check that the stream is actually running. It is public. I was doing some tests of the streaming yesterday. Yep. All right. Okay, so draw shots. Let's take a look. And this draw shots routine here. So I had this weird thing where, you know, I was using the X register to go from the end list of the end of the shots back down to the first shot, and I was storing in the X register that specific offset. It actually makes more sense to start with the number of shots and then hardwire the offset, is what I'm trying to do by adding shots index. Then at the end I could just decrement the count, and the check for when I reach the end of the list is 0, which is easier to do. So, but trying to do that caused an issue. Let's take a look at num shots up here. The number of shots are 4. So let's just try putting this down to 2 then, because originally it was 2. Oh. That blew up the engine. Well, that shouldn't really blow up the engine. I mean, it blew up the engine even though I don't shoot anything. Actually, I wonder what happens if I do shoot. Right. So, yeah, memory corruption is not your friend. That's good though, because it means, in a way, because it means that now I can figure out why there's a difference when I change num shots. So let's have a look at the consequence of changing num shots. Changes the number of entities. I wonder what is the number of entities? Oh. Yeah, I think there's something a little bit dodgy with that, because technically a ship is a sprite. Where do I use number of entities? Ah. And num sprites. Where do I use num sprites then? Oh, I don't. Maybe I use them in here. Hi, Alan. Yeah, it was Alan, not Adam. I've got someone at work called Adam that I called Alan, and it was like, how's it going? Yeah, I've got memory corruption. Move sprites. So the difference is that sprites are literally sprites as opposed to shots. So the enemies, I have this the wrong way round then. The number of sprites should be the num letters. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, that's correct. The num sprites and num entity sprites, entities include shots. So the number of entities is everything. It's the number of letters, plus the number of ships, it's just one ship, plus the number of enemies, plus the number of shots. So when I changed the number of shots, everything went haywire. What happens if I put 3 in here? The problem is that I'm trying to, look at that. I'm trying to support more than 16 sprites because I need to. If I have 4 shots, 10 letters, 1 ship and 2 enemies, I get to 17 sprites. So I'm reorganizing this so that I can have 32 game sprites. Oh, nice. Good stuff. Have you got access? Do you have access to the book? It's available online. There we are. Doing a computer clock in 1980. It was cool. People take it for granted now, but back then the idea of a machine that could make pictures and images, it was exciting. Want to make pictures and images and noise like we have here. I think, you know what, I had, this was the original, this was the configuration, was 4 shots. So it works when I have, so it means that there's something missing in the configuration of the data, because you have to manage data all the way down to the offsets of everything. You have to do everything manually. So what it could be is to do with the number 16 for 16 sprites. We have this sort of draw buffer. I want to know why I have 16 times 16 bytes. The draw buffer, there are 2 draw buffers. And you know, let's check something else here before I have 16 currently, so that's why it works. And when I want to go to 17, it's a problem. Yeah, that was I got that going right at the end of the stream. It's very nice. I just want to point something out, that back in 1980, most video games that you saw used only 8 directions. Fixed point wasn't something that was understood by everybody. You could tell because of many games that were made, they were sort of simplistic in that way. So having 16 directions like this, that was pretty innovative for 1980, I think. It's quite pleasing. And in a way, it's a little more pleasing than how you would do it today, where you would just keep it, you would use fixed point and the speed of everything would be the same in all directions. So the diagonals here, you can see move faster, and even the half diagonals move faster than when you move, say, up and down, and then diagonal, whee! It's actually about 40% faster going on the diagonals, and the reason is Pythagoras, is that if you're moving on a diagonal 1 pixel every frame, then you are moving 1 in x and 1 in y, combine it together, and you end up with the square root of 2, which is about 1.4, because that's Pythagoras. 1 squared plus 1 squared equals, you know, square root of 2 is for the thing. So what you've got is the square. So the point here is that if you want to have completely smooth movement, if going back to what I said, you know, a few days ago, if you want completely smooth movement, you need to move once every frame displayed on the TV. Always move 1 frame, never skip a frame. You want it to be locked in like that. So now if you are moving diagonally and you want it to be the same speed as moving horizontally or vertically, you would need to go 40% slower. And so now you've got frames where it doesn't move, and so you'll get a judder. So if you want it to move without a judder on lower resolution screens, it's less of an issue where you have a higher resolution screen because the pixel boundaries are less important, and you may also have some anti-aliasing in there to help you or whatever, right? But when you were building it like this, you would get a much cleaner graphics by dispensing with the idea that everything has to move at the same speed in all directions. But one of the things that you get from that is it adds character to the game. And the weird thing is, I used to hate this. I'd go and say, well, it's really annoying that it goes faster when you go in the diagonal. That isn't right. You shouldn't go faster when you go in the diagonal, you know. But in actual fact, it became part of the game. I just like the way that, you know, as you're flying, you hit the diagonal and it's like you're soaring. So it creates an emotional effect that's like soaring, like a bird soaring. So, you know, you're going like this and you go down, it's like a dive, and it feels faster. Or you're going across and you go up, it's like you soar, and you soar up. That feels a little less natural. Definitely the down feels like. You know, so I think that's something that we kind of lose these days, is experimenting with that kind of stuff. All the movement is just all taken for granted. But so similarly, that enemy is following the same rules. It moves diagonally faster than it moves horizontally, right? And then, but that gives a certain feel for the way it moves and the way it chases you, and that gives a certain character that feels, these days, a bit unique. So, yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying, is doing trig to do it properly, the game would lose character. And that's one of the reasons why I want to do it faithful. But I mean, it's true that I am using fixed point, which I didn't use back then. But if I had used fixed point, the game would have lost a bit of character. So although I do have fixed point, I'm still recreating the original behavior, but with fixed point. But anyway, so can I shoot? Right, shooting doesn't work. I've got that. But what I need to do is I need to deal with the bigger problem, which is that I want to be able to have something other than 16 sprites. So if I reduce it down to, say, 15 sprites, then all the data is shifted. That's why we get this corruption. All of the data for the sprites is all off by one. I need it not to be. So I have to, the only way of doing this is to go through the code and you know, inspect it. Well, actually, we can start, do the usual thing where I can go to my main loop. Hopefully the new mode will format that, because I have a dot on it. It recognises it as a label and then it puts it on the left. Before the loop, I'm going to jump to halt. So now all it's going to do is set up the initial, it's going to make an error actually, value not defined, loop, jump dot loop. It's because it wasn't dot before. All right, try again. And that's okay. Interestingly, the initial draw works absolutely fine. Oh, but this is 16. Right. So then I'm going to change it to 15, and now the initial draw will probably fail. Yes, it does. I just get a mess. Now I had stuff in here. The data was sort of stored, hardwired in here before, but I'm changing the way that works now so that apart from the sprites image, so this is the image that I want to have in each sprite, but the rest of it I've just made blocks of memory. And then so I have to initialize them at the start of the game. And for each one of these, I've got the number of entities. So the number of entities is now 15, right? Because it's the number of sprites, which is the number of letters, which is 10, plus 1 is 11, plus 1 is 12, plus 3 is 15. Number of entities is 15, and the whole thing is broken. So then you have to find where that is. And so that's happening on draw sprites. But let's look at the initialization as well. Let's initialize the random number generator, draw the line across the top of the screen, initial letter position, random numbers, and then store a sprites XH. Letters start at 0, so I can just use this straight off. YH. Yeah, I think we could see that that worked because things are moving when they're moving. We see them move as if the sprites were working. So I think we need to first of all look at the routine move sprites forced. And this starts from the number of sprites rather than the number of entities. The sprites are the first block, so that's fine. All the sprites are grouped together. Well, they need to be grouped together. Let me just make sure that they are. The shots index comes at the end, so they are. So this is going to go through all of those without a problem. JSR move sprite. Let's look at the move sprite routine. Move sprite 1. X is the sprite number. And what do we have here? Sprite address, draw address 1, and then draw address 1 plus number of entities, because that's the low and the high byte. I have 32. Oh. That could be it. This actually needs to be the number of entities, but high and low addresses, so it needs to be times 2. That also needs to be that times 2. I doubt that that will fix it, but we can start there. No, but that I think was definitely wrong. And so we go to draw sprite 1 collision, draw address 1, because draw sprite 2 uses draw address 2 for the 2 buffers. And so this would be 0 or 16, which then becomes 0 or 15 if I have 15 entities. And then we go to buffer XOR with screen. So that could that be the issue? X is the sprite index, right? Let's have a look at that routine. Now, this 256 times 0, 256 times 1, and so on, is all to do with from. This is the sprite data that's being pulled out a line at a time. This 16 plus 16 times 0, comma x, this 16 times 0, what is that? Ah. Yeah. Oh, shoot, I can't remember what that 16 is. X is the sprite instance. Ah, it's from the draw buffer. Yes, these 16s need to be changed to 15 if you're using 15 sprites. So pretty short. Let's go and do anything that says 16 becomes num entities. Well, not anything, but we'll just check. Yes, this is correct. No, is it? What? Hang on, I'm getting confused. A sprite instance. What do I mean by sprite instance? Yes, because I'm doing it from the buffer. It's from the sprite drawing buffer. Oh, I need to think carefully about this. This is definitely where it goes wrong. It also explains why things wouldn't sort of completely fall apart in terms of crashing everything, because it will only create a visual issue. I need to remember how that works. So basically there's a buffer which contains there's a buffer that contains the shifted sprite that needs to be drawn. So the shifting is done while the screen is being drawn, and then after the VSync, what was shifted is then blitted onto the screen. So this means that every sprite that I have has two draw buffers. The draw buffers need to contain 16 bytes because it's an 8-byte sprite, but because it's shifted over and you can overlap two bytes, it becomes a 16-byte thing that you need to do. So I have those 16 bytes. But what's that 256? If I divide 256 by 16, that means there were 16 of those for each one. The second one here is either 0, 1, no, it's 2, 3, 4. I've forgotten how this works. So each one of these is one of the bytes in the blit. So there are, in fact, 16 repeated blocks of code for doing the blitting. And 250, see, this one is just 0 and 1. 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. So and they're set 256 bytes apart. Why? Because I had 16 sprites and there are 16 bytes. So that's beginning to make sense, right? If you have 16 sprites and 16 bytes, but now I have a different number. So really what this would be is 16 times 16, because there are 16 bytes in the buffer, and there are 16 sprites, but now there will be 15. So in fact, I need to change these 256 to 16 times the number of sprites. I think that's what that is. This other side here, this plus the 16 times 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever, this is just going up six, 7, and it's 16 because we're going through each of the 16 bytes. So I don't think I need to change that. That 16 has to do with the fact that each buffer has 16 bytes in it. Right. So if I am right with all of that reasoning, what I need to do is change 256. So we'll just do a replace. We need to multiply 256, replace 256 with num entities times 16. So that becomes 9 entities times 16 times 0. And then the byte to the right of the first byte is the next block. So that's num entities times 16 times 1. So when I was changing this, I missed that. Now, if, what's this? Is that anything in here? No. It was just in that blit routine. So maybe I fixed the blit routine now. We will see. No. That did not work. Well, let's just make sure that when I put it back to 16 sprites, yes, then it does work. When it's 16 sprites, it works just fine. But when I change it to 15, it doesn't. So I need to keep working on that. What did I do wrong with all of that logic? Num entities was 16 becomes 15. This number that was there was 256 before. I'm wondering whether that second 16 should also be num entities. I don't remember how this is mapped out. So we've got yeah. Yeah, Yeah, I think so. I think I need these 16s also need to be converted to num entities. We'll try that. 16 replaced with num entities. Not that one. Okay. It's getting better. It's still not there. You can almost read the letters. Well, let's see if we can make sense by looking at what kind of corruption we have. It kind of looks as though when we look at the A, this A here, it looks like half of it worked fine. F, D, H, the G. I think half of it is good. It's the one to the right that's wrong. So that would be this one. No, this one. Oh, it's giving me a headache. I can't. Let's go and have a look at where I copy the buff to the buffer. I can't remember how this works. So we're going to look here. XOR, round sprite, buffer XOR with screen. This sprite to buffer, it should be. Oh, we need to check this one as well. So this copies the sprite to the buffer. This is quite a should be a straightforward one. The sprite instance is the X. So this is reading the data from the sprite, which could be rotated. And it's copying it into the buffer, which is pointed at by this guy. And so we have multiplied by 32 and 0 and 1 and 256. I think I've got to do the same thing here that I did down there. We'll try. Let's just make sure before I do. That is working fine when I have 16. And that is what I get with 15. Um, 15. Let's see. When I start repeating words like that, it's because I've got other thoughts ahead in my head. I get distractions. Be gone. Okay, so sprite to buffer. Yeah, I've got to, well, these shifts actually work on the sprite data, so that's nothing to do with the sprite instances. It's these ones here. So I reckon that 256 needs to be num entities times 16. So we can convert 256 to num entities times 16. What's it doing? It did more than I asked for. I don't understand what happened there. We're going to convert 256 oh, be careful. It shouldn't be. No. The froms are fine because those are the sprites. I need to do them only on the 2 lines. It looks like I did half of it already. I'm missing the other half, which actually would explain why we're seeing what we're seeing. So, not that one, but yes to that one. No, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. Yes, I'm trying to get rid of all the hard-coded 16s, exactly. We'll try this and see if this gets, it should get a bit closer to where we want to be. Oh. A bit early for Christmas, or a bit late for Christmas, depending on how you look at things. That is with 16 sprites, and that seems to work. Now we use 15 sprites, and then that there. 15 sprites. It's good. Some of them look a little odd because they're cancelling each other out on the exclusive or plot. So that is good. Because what I want to do is have 2 enemies. Thanks, Alan. We need 2 enemies because Alan went and played the original game, or the reskinned version that was published, and saw that in fact you get 2 enemies. I haven't looked at the game, by the way, because I'm doing this from memory. I'm deliberately not looking at that original game because I want to see if I can. So that'd be why I didn't remember that there was like 2 enemies, although now that you mention it, I remember. So I have attempted to do 2 enemies and it's not corrupting anything, so that's good. That's progress. And I want to try and see if I can have 2 enemies chasing me. The other thing though is that because, here you can confirm this, Alan, because you are the only person in the entire universe who's played the 1980 version of the, no, I don't know who's played it, but their shots, yes, yeah, the shots kill each other, and so the question is, I bet when you have the Greek letter comes and gets you, I think it was time sliced with the refueling letters, which means that they will be slow or faster depending on how many letters that we have. As the letters speed up, so do the Greek letters. That would be one possibility. The other one is that the Greek letters were time sliced between each other because I couldn't afford to draw 3 sprites or whatever. So when the enemy came on, you would have another sprite, but all the sprites would slow down as a result. I don't know if you noticed which way round that works, basically, in that version of the game. It's handy because then I can ask you for things like this without having to look at the game myself, which would spoil the recreation aspect. So, well, this is exciting. What we have here, this is good. because everything's working normally, but we have 17 sprites. And that up in the top left, that's the letter A. That is sprite number 17, the second enemy, which we'll do with an alpha. Another question I'll have for you is whether you ever see different Greek letters at the same time. Like if you had two letters on the screen, were they both alphas or betas or gammas or deltas? Yes, it does. Now, I'm recreating the original game, first of all, but I've got lots of ideas coming in for the sequel to Letteroids on the ACORN Atom. That could be, for example, oh, both cats and then both telephone. Oh, because I don't remember what the shapes were. Cats and telephones. Weird. I was talking about different things. I changed the topic. Never mind. All right. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. There we go over here. We're looking at the sprite image for the enemy. The shots come at the end. So if I was to put 10 in here, then that little A in the corner, that A in the corner should become an alpha. So yes, so now we have... I suppose I could have made the alpha into a fish. That would have pleased the publisher, wouldn't it? So we got the alpha. I'm going to make him move. So currently, the way the enemies move is in the code for oh, there's that whole thing. This is the whole calculate direction routine. Enemy behavior. I have an enemy's index, and we should probably put a loop in here. Dot EB loop. So the blah, 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 X, and Y, and then we get down to here, and we do decrement X branch if not equal dot EB loop. And dot EB loop. And then I can use the new formatting. Better. So now we can have multiple enemies, and yeah, number of enemies are 2. In theory, that should just work. I would now have 2 chasing me. Oh no, weirdness. I know why. I've done a bad thing. So there shouldn't be enemies index. I need to use num enemies, and then in here plus the autocomplete requires a space there. Enemies index. Enemies index. I forgot to say that I was streaming. I should probably do that. I've got to do that now. I forgot. Sorry, I'm just having a little marketing break. Let's see, if we go to, I'm going to my Twitter. Whoa, what have I got in there? What do we have in there? Streaming right now. That's the previous time. Oh, hang on, can't resist. It still is a good idea. The best way to ruin it is to defund it. We can easily afford it. But no. But that isn't why I was putting a comment on there. I want to post a link to this stream. Okay, and don't forget, you can do the same thing too. All right, streaming right now. And let me get that. And so I've just done that one, and I want to do LinkedIn, and then I do a Facebook. That's Facebook done, and no, LinkedIn done. Now I'm doing Facebook. What has happened? Yeah, it's something weird. Now, how do I change to my personal account here? See all profiles. I'll go to I'll post it on Dino Dini as well. There we go. We might have some more people join. You never know. Yeah, it's like that's really weird, isn't it? Calc direction. I need to add some stuff to the enemy index. I mean, I need to add enemies index here and here. And no, add it to the right ones. That's to the sprites. So this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So now the enemy behavior is actually working with the data it should be working with. All right, so at least no corruption, but the other one is not, it's not moving. It's not doing a very good impression of moving, is it? Why not? Well, maybe it's that. I've got to do load enemies -1. No. So now we've got to try and get that the other little alpha to move in the top left. It's not moving. Let's see what I'm doing wrong. I decrement the X register, branch if not equal, back up to the top, and then it does the next calculate the direction. They should both be chasing me. That's a bit odd. So what I could try is enemies -2. That will actually be... Let's see if we've got anybody chase... Oh. Corruption. Computer art from malfunctioning software. I mean, it's almost like making a scene from a sci-fi movie. It looks almost like 3D, doesn't it? It's corruption. This is the best yet. Who needs AI? You know, when you've got this. Yeah, that didn't work. That was not a good idea. Oh. I did that wrong. Let's have a look at where I've done other decrement texts and make sure how... Yeah, branch if plus. Yep, I did the loop wrong. That doesn't really help. I did the loop wrong. I want it to be able to do 0, so it's branch if plus, which does mean that I'm got a maximum of 128 sprites, but I think I'll be all right there for now. That's interesting. I'm not observing any enemy at all. That is a bit odd again. So I've got enemies index. And the right place. You know, I've got a loop. It should be working. That's a step backwards. Well, what I could try to do is go back to one enemy. And then now he's chasing me. No, it should be branch of plus, because it will execute when it reaches 0. One more time, then it will go negative, and when it goes negative it won't execute the loop anymore. Right, I've got an idea to understand what went wrong with that. I'm going to make 2 enemies again, and we're going to go back to the enemy behavior, and I'm just going to load X with 0. So it's going to be using the enemy's index for everything. It should just work. It should not work. Okay. That does work. And what happens if I only use the second one? I know what it is. They're there. It's just that neither of them are moving, and they're both being drawn in the top left-hand corner, and they cancel each other out, and so it seems like they're not appearing. So neither of them are moving. I'm hardwiring the second enemy. The enemy behavior is modifying the second enemy, but we don't see anything. It's not moving him. Something is awry. What would that be? Well, okay. I'm going to go to enemy behavior and disable it a moment. Enemy behavior be disabled. And then over here, I'm going to set up initial velocities. Oh, yeah. Did I set up the enemies? I think I had a loop for setting up enemies. No, I didn't do anything to set up the enemies at all. So let's do that. We'll do it here. Initialize enemies. And so we do load A immediate 100, store A into sprites X high plus enemies index and 100 again, and we'll store that into Y high enemies index, and so it should move one of the enemies, and now we see two enemies because they were drawn on top of each other. So this one here is the first enemy, that is the second enemy. So for test purposes, I'm just going to see if I can position the second enemy somewhere else. No, that's not what I want. I want to initialize enemies. So we do this here like so, and what do we have? 50. We'll do 50, 100, and we're going to store this in enemy index +1. So with a bit of luck, we shall have them in the middle. Two enemies, they do definitely position themselves differently, and because they should all be getting integrated at the same time, so the physics, it should be running for both of them, I should be able to set off some kind of initial velocity as well for these, which I will do now. So let's have the first one is going to move horizontally to the right. I load 1, and this is VH, and 0 WH. So that is, the first one should move that way, and I'm going to have the other one move upwards instead. So that will be 0 for the X and -1 for the Y, which this would be the VH, and this one here would be the WH. They should both move. Let's see. Okay, so that's correct. Very odd then that only one of those enemies will track. Well, we'll see. If I turn on the enemy behavior again, we'll see which one of those. Both. Oh no. Oh, classic. You know what happened? This is what happens. You know that when I turned on both sprites, you couldn't see anything? That was because the AI for both sprites is exactly the same. And so they were moving in exactly the same way. And that means they were being drawn on top of each other every frame perfectly. And then because of the XOR, they were cancelling each other out. So they were both chasing me, but you couldn't see it. Ta-da! Hi, Mike. Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for joining in. It almost live reload. Yeah, I'll show you. It's yeah, if you're interested in that, I'll show you. So yeah, I like showing people stuff. So this is the editor. What you're looking at there is the editor. What you don't see, because it's not sharing the menu, but up the top there are menu options. I wonder how can I don't want to mess with my thing at the moment, but what will happen? You know, maybe I could just share my desktop when I want to. I should probably have a mode for doing that. Bear with me, and I will just add a mode, and then when we go. Whoops. 1 second. When I did that, the audio cut out. I'll be right back. Just yeah, don't go anywhere. Right, let's do this. Let's do this fancy like. I'll put a countdown on. Oh, how do I do this? Oh, there. Sorry, I'm not used to. All right. I think you can hear me. I think you can see my desktop. Maybe. Can you? It's all gone very. 1 second. Oh, well, right. Yeah, one moment. I'm looking at my. It's getting very. This is Inception land here, but I think I can fit to screen. There we go. Yeah, it was like really huge. It was like 4K. You're looking at a quarter of the screen. So this is the desktop there. You can see everything, including the view of for the graph that I have down here, where I train myself not to be bothered by how many people are watching. And but we have it. We have the menu. There's the menu. And what we also have is just. I'll show you the structure for the development environment. So just bear with me a moment while I get into the right thing. Okay, so my development environment, I've got Acme. This is the assembler. Sorry, yeah, the assembler. I said why I say sorry. I thought I said compiler, but I said assembler. I think I need a coffee or something, or a drink. So what we have is Acme Assembler, and you could just download that and use it. And I use that to generate the code. I have Letteroids is being developed in this directory. I'll come back to that in a moment. This is the Atomulator. So this is the emulator which I'm using. It has a folder called MMC, and you can emulate tape files in here. So what happens is when I hit F5 in Emacs, which you can't see at the moment, it runs a batch file. It's actually a bash script. And all that does is run the assembler and then take the output of the assembler and put it into a file, which is Letteroids, and copies it over here. So that's fine. And I was able to just use the assembler with no other tooling to generate write in the assembler the correct format for the tape image. That goes straight onto there. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, if I'm inside the attomulator and I hit F12, I get a reset. Now, I would have to sit there and sort of type in the command every time, which was star. Ooh, start. The keyboard's weird. Start run. I think it is, isn't it? Letteroids. I never typed, right? And there we go. That runs. So what we have now is the problem that we need to do this step every time. So in order to get around that problem, I have an autoit script. So this autoit script activates the attomulator window and then does some funky things where it sets the speed of the emulation to be 500% faster than normal, so that it can handle the faster typing, so it doesn't take, so it can get a start to be quicker. So it does that, then it sets, I still have to slow down the key presses. It sends F12 to do the reset, sleeps 200 milliseconds, then it sends run, star run, but I have to use at because it's the way the keyboard works, but it's actually star run letteroids with an extra space. The space is important because sometimes when you switch over from the menu, you end up with a stray M. So I add a space on the end, then do the menu option for switching back to slow mode, which sometimes gives you a stray M, sleep 100 milliseconds, then do a backspace. So, you know, I added a space here in case the M appears. If the M does appear, then it will get deleted by this backspace. If the M doesn't appear, then I'm just deleting a space. Automation. And then after that, another little sleep and enter. And that runs. You can see that if I just run this script in here, you can see it do it. And that's, hopefully that made sense. Yeah, I think it's probably worth getting. I think it's open source, so I've started looking at going into open source projects and hacking them. So I did actually submit a change to OBS Studio to improve the window matching. For example, I might take a look at this attomulator and see if we can put into it a kind of remote startup to sort of make a better way of doing this, you know. Then the other part that I mentioned was that, you know, constructing the right file format directly inside of the assembler. So you can do that kind of hacking with assemblers. It's really handy in that way, you know. I actually start, I mean, the code runs at 2900, which is standard place to run code on an Atom. And, but I actually move back 16 hex bytes so that I can build up the header, and it does that here. This last one is the length. So it's like, how does it do the length? Because the rest of it is easy enough. Right. And then there was a check. Do I need to do the checksum? I think I guess this file format is used. It doesn't need the checksum. No, because that's to do with the tape format. It's literally putting it on the tape. So yeah, so there's a question then, how does it know how big it is? Because I need to then write the size in here. So for that, I'd use a trick where at the end of the file here, it repositions the program counter exactly to that 2 bytes that need to be filled in with the size, and then puts end minus start, and then boom. So I was quite pleased with that, because I didn't have to write some kind of other tool to translate from one to the other. You could see the file in here with the header, and then this is the game, and I'm looking at it, and I'm running out of memory. So you know, it's kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I could just go ahead and do this. I don't need to worry. I've only got 6K of memory. I'm already at 6K of memory. Damn! I knew this was going too well. Hang on, let me see. What? Oh, 1K is 400. So if 1K is 400 in hex, 1000 in hex is 4K. I'm actually out of memory. I've only got 6K to play. I didn't want to look at that. Oh, I'm out of memory. It's all the data that I'm using. It's all the, I mean, the program itself isn't so bad. It's just the data buffers. Oh well, we'll cross that bridge, Rooney, when we come to it, because then I have to turn on the optimization skills. Well, that's the thing. I think I am using the RAM, main RAM. Yeah, I'm using the 6K motherboard, 3K DOS, and 23K expansion. It's like stuff of dreams. Minimum 1K in base plus 5K. I'm switching it to that. Watch out. It seems to be working. I need to check. What did I say? 400 is 6K. I run out at 1800 and I'm at 1652. It's getting very close. I only have 512 bytes, about 300 or 400 bytes left. And I want it because I want it to run on the hard. I mean, that's part of the mission here, is to get it to run on the original machine. Yeah. On the original machine. So I start looking at this. You remember when I said, oh, it's fine, I'll just up it to 32 sprites. 32 sprites. Well, it's a good thing that I can fine-tune the number of sprites now. What else can I do to get back memory? I'm already thinking about memory. One of the things I could do is mirror the sprites for the ship. That would get back a bit. I mean, the sprites themselves, there are 16 sprites. Each sprite is, because of the way I built it, that I'm rotating the source sprite, we need double the number. So even though each sprite is 8 bytes, they become 16 bytes to handle rotation. So the ship takes up 256 bytes. See, that's not a huge amount. And I've got, I need to have the font for the score. And the other thing is all of using the macro assembler. I can unroll the loop, so it's like the blit function is completely unrolled. Wonderful performance, but it uses up code memory, obviously, uses up RAM. But we're good, and I tell you why, because the performance is way over what I need. I can probably, I think the performance is 4 times faster than I had in the code I did in 1980. I could have 8 sprites, I think, in PAL mode at 50 FPS. I think I can get 8 sprites. I don't need 8 sprites. So if it comes down to it, what I'll do is re-roll up some of the loops, and then I can retrieve some memory there. So there is no need to panic. Don't panic, Mr. Mannering. I will be able to make it fit. This wouldn't be fun if I wasn't hitting the constraints of the platform, right? I can probably crunch it down a bit, but it's a trade-off because it's already pretty optimized. We shall see. Hey, Scott, how you doing? Yes, I did have an Atom. That's what I started with. I had the Atom before the BBC Micro, and before the Atom, I had the ACORN System 1. And I'm having a blast working on the Atom again. And it's really inspired me to go through all of the machines that I've ever programmed. I also want to own every machine that I've ever programmed. So I need to do, yeah, the BBC Micro, but I also need to do the Atari 400/800. I wrote a game for that. And that hardware on that is really a lot of fun. Incredibly powerful. People don't appreciate how powerful the 400/800 computers were. It came out in 1978. It's absolutely astonishing, way ahead of their time. Amazing stuff. So there's that. But if I wanted to go back to the first computer that I ever wrote a game on, I would have to go to the Hewlett-Packard 9825 that my father had at his work. And he let me go to work and he let me use the Hewlett-Packard 9825. And if I wanted to recreate that project, I need a Hewlett-Packard 9825 and I need a plotter as well, a pen plotter, because that was, I did noughts and crosses on the Hewlett-Packard 9825 connected to a pen plotter. So it would draw it out on a sheet of paper. So I have 2 Hewlett-Packard 9825s that I caught off eBay. I haven't dared turn them on yet. So there's a bit of a road on that one. If you like the channel Curious Mark, is a great channel, great guy. They do a lot of work on getting the Apollo hardware working again, like the communication hardware and so on. And lots of really interesting stuff on that channel. It's fascinating. But he blew up his 9825 because the power supply blew its regulating transistor. And so it put high volt, like 15 volts on the TTL 5-volt supply for the entire computer. These computers are amazing inside. They are built out of, TTL logic. And a custom microprocessor that was made by Hewlett-Packard. That they're irreplaceable. Anyway, he has an extended series where he's repairing this 9825, finding all of the chips that blew up, having the CPU survived, but the LED displays blew, and he had to find replacements for those. He managed to get his 9825 back up, but he's published a circuit, the design, or this PCB, for a crowbar circuit. So before I even dare to turn on the 9825s, I need to build the crowbar circuit. I have the PCBs, I need to build those, put them into the 9825, and then try it out. The irony is I actually sent a message to Curious Mark years ago where I was saying, look, I'm getting these 9825s and I'm worried about, you know, what should I do with them to make sure that they don't end up blowing up the, you know, because of the power supply. And he said, oh, I just usually just turn them on. Well, you know, he's sort of, I wasn't ready to do that. But then eventually the one that he had previously turned on blew its transistor. So he puts the crowbars in there now. But that would be really interesting if I could go back that far. Another project I want to do is, and I've started work on the design of the PCB for it, because there was a project in practical electronics from around about 1978-ish. I managed to find it, which was fantastic. A video card that I built from that project in around 1978. And it's like a display. It's less powerful than the Atoms one, but it's visual display unit, and with 1K of video RAM, and I've got all the parts for it. And I need to build the PCB. So if I can do that, then I can take that and connect it to my ACORN System 1, which I restored, and that would be the first computer that I ever programmed that had a TV display. Was before, so that's technically before the ACORN Atom. Then I went to the Atom, and then I went to the BBC Micro, and it was all downhill from there, you know. So lots of exciting stuff if I get there. Too many things I want to do. Anyway, yeah, BBC. There are interesting things with the BBC, but you know, it's not easy either. The 800 XL was incredible, yes. Oh, yeah, it's scary when you look at what people can do with the hardware now. And that's the point, is that, you know, what I'm doing, I want to see how far I can push the ACORN Atom. It'll be much further, probably, than anything that you would have seen develop back then. But I'm cheating because I'm using a modern development environment, modern PC. It assembles instantly. I'm running it in an emulator. You can't compare it. Back then you would have to be using cassette tapes, and if you were a professional, perhaps you would pay an extortionate amount of money to expand your RAM to 12K so that you can hold the source code in the together with the game that you're writing. In practice, what you would have to do is compile in segments and then load the parts into memory, because there wouldn't be enough memory to... Look, I'm running out of memory. Where's there the room for the source code? So these were the constraints that made it very hard to push stuff to its limit. I think it's kind of cool that we can now use the modern development environment to push the ACORN Atom as far as it can possibly go. And I want to try out all the tricks. We shall see. But the funny thing was that as the computers became more powerful, I found myself, it was getting harder to be creative. It's really weird. It was, I remember a long time ago thinking about this, and why is it that as the technology becomes more powerful, I get writer's block or game designer's block? And I think there's something very important there to understand. That's another reason I'm trying this. I found a workaround for auto starting the Tomulator. It seems that... Oh, that's a good idea. If you put to auto run menu. Well, that's exciting. I'm going to give that a go, because then I can accelerate my development cycle even more. Sorry, a little less on theatrics, Dino. You're getting heady. People are talking to you. I know you spend most of your time on your own, and then when you are talking to people, you kind of goes to your head. Calm down, relax. But yeah, I always refer to the 800 XL as a mini Amiga. Yeah. You can think of it like that. In fact, the people who worked on the Amiga, I think, worked on that machine as well. There were lots of ports of Kickoff that I had nothing to do with. I didn't have anything to do with that, but now you are. That's interesting. Kickoff for the ACORN Atom. I don't think so. I don't think that's going to be possible. Can we use real-time breakpoints? We can use real-time breakpoints on the Atari 2600 now to the scan line, whereas back in the day you had to burn a ROM just to try it. Yes. And not only did you have to burn a ROM just to try it for the 2600, you had to count all your cycles because the 2600 didn't have any VRAM. Now, I know this not because I've ever... It didn't have any video circuitry, not VRAM. It didn't have any video circuitry. It uses the CPU to draw the scene. It's the most crazy thing. I've never done it. But the reason I know this is because I used to be a colleague of Todd Fry, who is the guy, when I was working at 3DO like 25 years ago, 23 years ago, whatever. Todd Fry wrote Pac-Man for the 2600, which I know some people like to criticize. But anybody criticising doing Pac-Man on the 2600 just don't understand how fracking difficult it is to do that. And you can't compare it with doing it now for the reasons that have just been said. We have tools now that you didn't have back then. I mean, it's, yeah, because the problem with the 2600 is that when you make your code, you have to make the entire loop of your code, the main loop of your code, needs to be synchronized to the vsync and not change. So you have to make sure that your code always executes the precise same number of cycles every time. This is worse than just optimizing, doing cycle counting on the processor for optimization purposes. This is counting your cycles for synchronization purposes. Whoa. And there are people who've done crazy things on the 2600 now as well. I have to say it because it's like, you know, yeah, a lot of ports were not mine. And there are more than a few people who did ports of my game, sometimes with illegally obtained copies of the source code. And then it went to their heads and they pretend as though they're the creators of Kickoff. There's one particular unsavoury gentleman who I won't mention, who I think literally believes that, and I'm not talking about Steve Screech here, it's someone else. He's just utterly crazy. The lengths that some people will go to. Anyway, that's off topic. So, right, but that's the explanation why I kind of say things like that. You know, it's like, no, that was nothing to do with me. Let me try that trick because I like that idea. So I'm going to take of the menu thing. So, excellent. I didn't know about that. So what I can do is it outputs it to MMC Lettoroids. Well, if I just output it to MMC menu. And then I hit, how do I start it? There must be a way of starting it. I think it's now in menu, but It's not starting it by reset. Disk settings. Oh, it'd be really good if it did that. Now just hit break and make it load. I'm waiting on the edge of my seat to hear from Alan on that one. Shift F12. Oh, really? Oh, that's a thing of beauty. Thank you so much. You don't know how happy that makes me. Scale of 1 to 10, extremely happy. Yeah, that's... So, I just need to change my little script a little bit. Where is my thing here? Yes. So you can see what I'm doing. I'll switch to this. So all I need to do now, I think, is I can sunset these lines. We're sunsetting these lines. Everybody like to use the word sunset. Sunrise, sunset. Right, so Win activate Atomulator, and then we need to send Shift F12. Let's just see if I run that. No. Right, let me see. Shift F12. Yes. I probably need to do a sleep here. Let's do it a 1 second delay. We'll optimize it in a minute. DevOps. No. All right, I'm probably doing the wrong thing on the shift. How do you do shift with this? I thought it was plus, he said. Do I have a GitHub page? I don't think so. Am I going to share the code to this? I don't know. I have to go soon. I'll catch the rest later. Well, you know, I always like collaborators and the opportunity to collaborate. So if you want to collaborate, just, yeah, send me an email. My email address is my, you know, the dn1011, and then you just put that together with the old Gmail thing. You can send me an email. But thank you for joining in. Right, so why does it not work? See? For F12, I need to look at the documentation in here. If we do send shift. Oh, it's so sad. It's so sad. When you get so close, I got no way of putting in a shift for some reason. Okay, we have to debug this. Let me type like hello in here in capitals, and we'll see what we get. Oh, I think I forgot to do something very important. It's very important to set the key delay and down, otherwise it just doesn't see the key presses. Hello, so we'll run that. You see the problem. It's like, because it's not running at the faster emulation speed, it can't handle these. So you know what? We have to slow this thing down. I've still got to send keys in there, unless you know a way. We'll just try this again. See if we can get this to. Okay, but we didn't do the, right. So then we do F12, which we can use to do the reset, and then hello. This is how to debug this stuff. See, that didn't work because that says F21, which is an entirely different thing. So, okay, so that works. And so then we want to do plus F12 and then hello. Come on. Oh, we're getting there. All right, so if I just can remove the sleep, because the problem was the key delays. Let's try it again. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. Look at this. You've just sped up my development cycle. And you know, it might not seem like much, but that's just half a second. It's just brilliant. That is, look at that. I can't get enough of that. Can I get it faster? Probably not. Maybe I could do 50. I'm going to do 50, and it probably won't work at 50. It just won't hand. Oh, it's a little bit faster. Is it reliable? It is reliable. This is just so good. Thank you so much, Alan. That's brilliant. I got a new workflow. Let's just test that out in. Switch back here. I'm going to test it out in Emacs. Oh, it's not using the new one. That was using the old system. I need to compile. I need to compile this. So I hit F7. It compiles the executable that is run. So let's try that again. Oh, lovely job. Lovely job. Okay. I just got a big smile on my, you can tell I got a big smile on my face. When you can imagine how frustrated I was when I was working with Unity. So I have two enemies chasing me now, which is great. Obviously they cancel each other out eventually. They'll go on top of each other and cancel each other out. What I'm going to do is now change that somewhat, because I think I don't have the slice bit set for those enemies. What I mean by the slice bit is that they're obviously running as an independent sprite right now. So the game currently has one sprite. Hey, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Can I call you? You'll have to help me with how to pronounce your name. I'll call you SO until I know how to pronounce your name. But thank you. So, shooting still doesn't work. I need to get to that. Now, what was it that I was going to do? I can't remember now. I've got too many things going on in my head. What? Oh, yeah. So currently there's one sprite is the ship. Then I've got two sprites, which are the enemies, and they're running at 50 frames per second, or 60, I think at the moment, frames per second. And then all the other letters are one sprite, time for one sprite shared. So only one moves every frame. And because I'm using exclusive or plotting and there is no double buffering, anything drawn on the screen that doesn't change costs nothing. And so that's one of the big optimizations I used on this, was that because things that don't move don't cost anything, then you can actually have a lot of sprites if they don't move very fast, or they don't update very often. So what I'm going to do is add the enemies into the slicing. So to do that, I need to do the enemy initialization, which I had here somewhere. Initialize enemies. Those are special. I've got to keep those the same, but now I'll do a load x immediate num enemies -1, and then we do load a immediate 1. No, I've actually got a flag now, sprite flag slice. Instead of using magic numbers, I'm starting to do the refactoring for that. Then we do sprites flags. I need to store it there, but I need to do that plus the enemy's index and comma x. And then we need to do initialize enemy loop, and we can do decrement x and then branch if plus initialize enemy loop. Yeah, this is yes, it is. It's high res monochrome. It's the mode 4. So the screen resolution is 256 by 192. And that was actually very impressive for 1980 on a machine you could afford. It was still expensive. It was something like about £300 or £400 back in 1980. So I think the equivalent now would probably be maybe 3 times that. So we're looking at like £1,200, £1,500. It was, you know, but the fact that you could have that was high res graphics of the day, right? Absolutely, email me. Fantastic. And thanks for popping by, and take care. Have a good evening. So I'm doing this initialization of this loop. That's so good how fast that is. Do you know the slow point of the system is now the assembler? I kind of want to optimize this even more. Is it? Is it the assembler? We'll see. It's like, I will look into that. I might be able to shave half a second off. That's it. So anyway, that worked, by the way. The point was to time slice the enemies, which I am now doing. I think I only have the facility for slicing in one group. I don't remember if, you might be able to help me, Alan, with this one, but if you have, say, only a couple of letters left on the screen and they're going to be moving faster, do those letters slow down if an enemy appears? I don't know. Well, we can worry about that later. Anyway, these are now moving like this, but they're chasing me, but more slowly. It would be nice if we can randomize their movement. So we're going to do a little bit of AI logic. Thank you, if you do. No pressure, but it's. I just don't know. I mean, I suppose I could always, when I'm done with this, take that code of the game that was published and disassemble it and see how I wrote it. That would actually be quite cool, because although I've lost the source code, it's gone. The source code of that I don't think I have anywhere. there does remain that published game that was reskinned. That should be quite interesting. So, you know, it would be not hard, because I think I will do that and look back at how did I do it in 1980 and compare it with how I do it now. But anyway, back here, I don't recall if it used this type of, it's possible I could change the, well, the behavior is not going to be identical because I'm doing this from memory. I don't remember what the enemy behavior was, but hey, if I disassemble the original, I could find out. It's in the Atom software archive. That's another possible future project. What I want to do is look on the enemy behavior. I now have I have randomness here. So what we can do is choose according to a random roll whether to head towards the ship. I need, you know, let's do a state machine. Why not? We're going to have a state machine for the AI. Yes, AI, 1980 style. This code that I've just commented out here, this is the chase the ship AI. I'm going to replace this with the random movement AI. So now it's on the random movement. They just, every now and then they change their direction to one of the 16 permitted directions. This is close to how the original AI would have been. I just don't recall whether they move towards you or not. But what I'm going to do, because I feel like it, is make it so that, yeah, you have this random movement, but sometimes they go towards you. So for that, I would need to have some kind of flag for my enemies. And what I could do is use the sprite flags, the bits I haven't used yet. I have bit 6, bit 5 and bit 4 free, because I'm not just going to use more memory up willy-nilly because I'm running out of memory. So what I'll do is say that bit 6 is going to be AI state. And I've only got like one state at the moment. Oh, let's put it in 4. AI state. Let's put it in all 3 of them. Then I can have 8 states. So where were we in here? First thing we're going to do is check state. We're going to load into the accumulator the sprites flag, sprites flags plus enemies index comma x, and then we're going to mask it with $40. I'm just going to use that one. I'm going to use a magic number for now. So that it's checked to see if bit 6 is set or not. Now it branch if it's not equal to enemy behavior 3, EB3, and we can put that here dot EB3, which is fine. Otherwise, there's this behavior, which is random shuffle about. And then when I finish that, I'm going to just jump to dot, which I could make a branch potentially, but I'm not going to bother at this point. Jump to EB4, which is going to be here, dot EB4. So actually, I'm going to put this back. I know I took it off. I'm going to put it back because it's not going to execute. It's not going to execute the chase ship. It's going to do the random shuffle because by default that bit is clear. Let's just see if that works. And I think they should be just doing random shuffle. I'm seeing here a couple of warnings. No, there's a warning, one warning. The other one it always does. The 83. What do I have in line 83? Oh, it's just a label out of place. So, why is the letter A not moving, everybody? That's disturbing. The letter A is not moving. Has it been not moving for a while? I don't know. I have to go into debug mode now. Why is the letter A not moving? Let's disable the letter A is a non-moving planet. Yes. Well, it's actually a non-moving refueling station. Once complete, I imagine it'd be fairly easy to port it to other 6502 systems. I don't think you could do it on the VIC-20. If I recall, the VIC-20 doesn't have a high enough screen resolution. Yeah, I don't think you could do 256 by 192. I mean, in principle, yes. It's just a question of, you know, how the graphics display would work. Let me put a return RTS on enemy behavior and see if this releases the letter A. No, the letter A is not, I think it's been not working for a while and I've only just noticed. My best guess would be it's to do with the loop decrement X on the end of the update code, which I think is in sprites, update letters, update sprites. Loadex num entities, we got to jump back to the update loop. No, branch if plus. Letter A is sprite 0. Okay, I've got to figure that out. You can't leave you can't leave a loose cannon like that lying around. It'll come and bite you later. So I've got to fix that letter A. So one of the things that we can do is just disable stuff. I'm disabling the shot updates because shots are broken now anyway. Update ship, enemy behavior, draw shots. I should just have the letters moving. Letter A is not moving. Is it to do with velocity? It could be the initialization loop of the letters. Let's take a look at that. Initial velocity of the letters. Loadex num letters -1. And then it's doing the initial position of the letters, which it does. Fine. Decrement X, branch if plus, initial letter position loop. So the initialization of this loop looks fine. So how can we, all right, next trick, where's the letter A? Still stationary. Next trick is to force the velocities of all the letters to be the same, and then you know the routine now. If you've been watching, you know the drill, what goes with this. There's no debugging facility available, so all we can do is scientific experiments, if you will. If I do load A immediate 0, load A immediate 1, I'm inserting some overriding the values that it gets from the table and just putting those in. So I probably want to just move these out so that I know that these are debug things. This should make all of the letters move to the right. And you can see all the letters are indeed moving to the right, except the letter A. That's interesting. Yeah, the Beeb had 320 by 256 instead of 256 by 192, and I would tend to go for the bigger playfield. Two reasons. One is that bigger playfield is nicer. You get less claustrophobia. But the other reason is that if you want to scale the sprites up a bit, they will go over an 8-bit boundary, and which means that you're having to slow down your sprite drawing routines. If you use an 8-bit wide sprite, you need to blitz 16 bytes if you want to have per pixel movement. But if you go bigger than if you go to 9 sprites wide, you can probably get away with that. But if you go to 10 sprites wide, then there'll be a point where it's actually overlapping 3 bytes. And so now your drawing routines will take, even just for a couple of extra pixels, is now going to be 50% slower. So you've got to be careful. The Apple II only had 280 by 192. I didn't know. Oh, here's a trick, by the way. The ACORN Atom has a character set that makes blocky pixels, 6 pixels per character. So there is a kind of a low resolution mode that you can get out of that. That resolution, I think, is 64 by I don't know. Can't remember any characters you get vertically. 64 by something. There's 32 characters across, and I think it's 24. It might be. That's weird, because then you end up with a bigger resolution vertically than horizontally, which doesn't feel right. Anyway, the point is, if you do that, you can potentially animate that very rapidly, even on a low-level CPU. So it becomes possible to make games with fast-moving graphics, like scrolling graphics or whatever. If you're willing to give up the resolution, you can increase the speed. This has some interesting possibilities, because I think you'd be able to make some very fun games in that mode if you just giving up the idea that you need high resolution. But back then, everybody wanted high resolution, because even including me, we were always thinking in terms of, oh, well, look at that blocky graphics. Can't we have more realistic graphics? But even back then, and it's like shame, really, because if you go with it, it's like you can have a lot of fun doing ASCII, making ASCII graphics, because ASCII graphics are really, really, really fast. stupidly fast, even on early hardware. But anyway, I digress. I need to find out why this A, the letter A, obviously it plots, but it doesn't move. So what can I do now to figure that out? It might be that it could be that the update isn't happening. It could be that it's getting overwritten with 0. So I guess the next thing we can do to figure out which of those it is to go into the update sprites routine, and where I see integrate X and integrate Y, I'm going to just do a little experiment. Actually, you know what? I'm going to first of all make that go back to 0, so nothing is moving, right? Now I go into the integrator, that's where I'm adding the velocity to the position. What I can do after the integrator has run is a really cheesy increment sprites YH. And if I do that, all of the sprites should move upwards. I don't. That's odd. Why don't they do that? They're not moving. I really thought that they would move. I mean, it's got to be executing that. What's that VWJJ? I'm not sure. Oh, that's working. Okay, I don't know why it wasn't working in the Y direction, but that movement that you're seeing there on the letters is actually hardwired into the integrator. I could just check that. If I comment this out, they shouldn't move anymore. So what's interesting is that doesn't work either, but clearly, okay, clearly it's able to draw the A where it's meant to be drawn. The possibility then is that this isn't being executed for X equals 0 is 1. So literally it's not integrating the A. The other possibility is that it is integrating the A, but it never redraws it. So to figure out which of those it is, I'm going to do a very cheesy thing, which is instead of incrementing sprites XH, the high byte of the X coordinate of the sprite, comma X, I'm going to get rid of the comma X. So they are all going to be incrementing the letter A. I should see the letter A move. But the letter A does not move. I'm going to try something else. They're all going to go and load A with 0 and store it in the X coordinate of the letter A sprite. They're all saying go to the left. It doesn't happen. They've all ended up going up to... Oh, that's because this load A has a side effect as it's breaking this code here. That's why they all jump up there. But that's great because that proves that this code is being executed. And my letter A does not move, which means the problem is not in the integration. It's in the visual update. The letter A is therefore in all probability moving. Let me just undo this. It's moving, but we're not seeing that it moves, which suggests the problem is in the loop, not the moves, the update or the update sprites. No, it's not there. It's in either move sprites or draw sprites. So let's have a look at move sprites. Here's move sprites. So now load the number of sprites into num sprites. And I am I'm executing the old code, and you decrement x, and if decrementing x I get a negative value that's minus, it goes to done. Otherwise, if it's plus, it jumps back up here. This is very weird that the letter A refuses to move. Okay. I'm going to look at the initialization code here and set it so that the high x velocity, that's this one, is set to 1. They should all be moving to the right. They are, except our mysterious non-moving letter A. Okay, and then the thought that I had was, in move sprites, I can hardwire moving any sprite. So we'll just do this with another instruction here, load x. I'm going to override the load sprite -1. I'm going to load x with 1. This is going to be the letter B. And what I do is also comment out this branch if minus, so it will only execute one sprite in move sprites. So what I expect to see right now is only the letter B will move. That's not making sense, so let's look at this again. Why is it that it's not moving the letter B? Let's check what I'm using internally. Sprite flags. This looks normal. It doesn't look wrong. Very odd. Let's put it back to num sprites -1, and it's only going to move one sprite. This is odd. It's like the first one doesn't count or something. Let me turn the loop back on. Oh, that's very odd. Let's try 5. Oh. So those ones that are blinking, they are blinking because I'm not calling move sprites on them, and they are sliced. We see B, C, D, E, F. B, C, D, E, F. There's 5. Weird, because really there should be 6. What happens if I put load x with 2? B and C are moving. We can see a pattern here. B and C are moving. But A isn't. It feels like there's some kind of weird off by one thing going on here. If I load X with 1, B is moving only. A still just never moves. If I get rid of the loop, surely this would be the same, wouldn't it? Nothing moves. If I put 2, I end up with B and C moving. And A is still stationary. Well, surely, because it does them backwards from C first and then B. If I... Oh. It was the wrong way around. I'm being really stupid. It was actually stuck in an infinite loop. I need to comment out both of those. All right. It was actually stuck in an infinite loop, and that's why nothing was moving. Foolish. All right. So at this point, I put 2 in there. The letter C is moving. Okay, that makes sense. I put 1 in there. That's the second letter. The letter B is moving. And if I put 0 in here, letter A, but ain't moving. Right, maybe one reason it ain't moving is because for some reason it got disabled. So if I comment out the code for disabling, right, if I comment that out, no, it's if I comment this out, then it will never disable. Okay, Scott, thanks for dropping by. Good to see you again. Take care. And look at that. It's still not moving because... So we can rule out that being that... Oh. Could it be because it's time sliced? I think I know what it is. I think I made... There's a... Yeah, I got it. Yeah, all right, I know what it is. Let's confirm. It's to do with the fact that it's being sliced. It's not moving because it's a sliced letter, and the slicing requires that I keep a count of how many letters are sliced. That count will be wrong. Let's just back up here, and I forgot about that. It will have started going wrong right when I added the second sliced enemy. So slice somewhere I set up the slicing. I'm trying to remember what the variable was called. It's called slice count, something like that. Slicing count, or slicing cycle. That's num letters plus 2. That should, because that needs to be the letters plus the 2 enemies. So now A's moving. Okay, if that happens in the future, then I will need to remember that. So I've now got 2 enemies slicing, and we need to get rid of some of this debug code here. So that, get rid of that debug code, and there we are. And then we can go back to working on the enemies now that I fixed that problem. Where are the enemies? Enemy behavior, which currently is always doing a random shuffle. I need to re-enable the ship. So let's update the shots, update the ship, update the enemy behavior, draw the shots. Okay, that's working. Now, in the enemy behavior, I want it to, when it's chasing the ship, no, when it's doing the random shuffle, I'm going to look at right. So I compare the first random number 0 to 256. If it's a value of either 0 or 1, it's going to change its direction, in which case it takes the direction from the next bit in the rand 1, the next byte, rand 1, and it takes the bottom 4 bits and uses the direction for that. Now, what I guess I could do is that when we jump to EB1, which is down here, that is not it's saying, no, I don't want to change direction. I need to put comment in here. So, don't change direction. Now, what I can do is, instead of going to EB1, I can create a new label, say EB5, and have it jump to EB5 instead. And this said, the question to be asked here is, should we change state? Now, what I can do is load rand +1 here, the second byte of the random number generator, and we can do a comparison with that one as well. And I'll compare it with 2 as well. And we can change the character of the enemy by changing the probabilities. So what there is a probability it will change direction, and there's also a probability that it will change state. So at this point, we're going to take the flags, we're going to AND it with $60. No, we're going to OR it with $60. So I'm setting a bit, and then we store it. So this sets, not 60, what are you talking about? 40, bit 6 is 40, right. So this sets state, oh, right, and I need to do here branch if carry set dot EB1. Or do I do EB2? So if we roll under 2 on a 256 sided dice, if you will, then you are going to end up with that state changing by changing the state of that flag. And we're going to say this is chase ship, and I'm going to just let it run through the chase the ship. What it does that, it just does what we did before. The point though is that then after having done that, we want to see if we want to change back into the other state. So it's going to chase the ship. I will have used rand 1. I don't think I'll have used rand +2. I have 3 bytes. I want to get as much as I can out of every random roll. Yeah, I can use rand 2. Load a rand +2. And then we're going to compare that with 2. And we do branch if carry set dot EB6, and so this will be dot EB6. Otherwise, we're going to clear. Actually, the easiest way is to actually use EOR. So I'm going to exclusive OR because I know it was set. And it's going to stop chasing ship. And we'll see how that works. And we have an error, syntax error on line 275. 4A is the opcode. So we're not going to see it really too clearly here, but what I will do is remove the slicing, cycle, which wherever I set that, which was here. I'm going to take off the enemies from that, but I do need to remove that for initializing the enemies, which is the slice flag here. Oh, damn, I found it. Now I've lost it. Where's the slice flag? This on the enemies. Let me comment that out. So none of the enemies will be sliced. They're going to move at full speed again. And I just wanted to do this for testing the algorithm out. Now they're sort of chasing me all the time. They don't seem to break out of the chase, so we need to debug that. I'm only seeing one behavior. So they're chasing the ship. When you're chasing the ship, load rand +2, compare it with 2, branch if carry set EB6, exclusive or 40. Load the sprites flag, store sprites flags. Okay, what I'm going to do is make this quite large so that it will almost always cancel the chase if it ever goes into a chase mode. Okay, so this is the random movement and definitely no chasing. It's possible that I'm never seeing it stop chasing because of the nature of the random number generator. So let's, I don't know, let's put a lower value on there, see what happens. There's sort of some chasing happening, I think, isn't it? For a bit. Definitely there was a chase there. Oh, that's good. So I think it is working. It just needs to be tuned. I see now. That's odd though. Oh, it's a probability thing. See, maybe if I change direction of the ship, we'll see it. And they're right on top of each other, and there should be randomization of the... yeah, I was just checking that I was rolling the random number, generating a new random number for every enemy. So this isn't quite working the way that I would expect. I would expect them to split apart from time to time. I think here's a thing I can do. Is right, what can I do? Because I need to understand why it is that behaves that precise way. Why is it behave that way? If we have some randomization, it wouldn't be possible for them to be right on top of each other all the time. It's all right on top of each other all the time. Try and change the direction of the ship here. We can't see them because they're right on top of each other. Tell you what I'm going to do is when I stop chasing the ship at the moment, it doesn't change the direction of the enemies immediately, and I think it should, because otherwise it just keeps going in the same direction it went before. So when I stop chasing the ship, I jump to EB7 change direction now. Okay, let's see if this it's like it's really weird. When it's chasing the ship, it seems to get stuck. Chasing the ship. But the probability, right, well, I'll make this really at some point with that value should stop chasing the ship. I mean, here, if it is chasing the ship, it only does it for, you know, it's only going to do it for a few frames. So there's no real evidence of it chasing the ship. Let's try and getting it down to 50 out of 256 probability. Yeah, I'm not seeing it because it's only going to be a few frames and then it'll flip straight back again. Let's do 20. There's about 10 frames on average that it will chase on average for a maximum of 10 frames. And then it switched back to random movement. And bingo, look at that. And that's very odd that it does that. It's troubling because that it suggests that I don't know, the random number generator is broken. Oh, well. So maybe to help understand this, I will make a display of the state of the two I can display the state of the two enemies just by copying the, yeah, all I do is copy the sprite flags enemy index thing here and then store that at address $8800 also comma X, and I'm just writing a copy of those state flags over there. You can see they're not changing. To make it a little easier to see, I'm going to add this with 40 and so then we'll only see a single bit. If the bit is lit, it means it is, which is it doing? If it's lit, it means it's chasing the ship. You see, they're not chasing the ship. Lovely debugging thing, just one line of code and boom, they're both chasing the ship. And there's definitely a bug here, because they get into a state where they're both chasing the ship and then they never stop chasing the ship. So I've got some kind of weird bug in my AI, but I don't understand how it could happen. So let's look at it, the code carefully. There I'm displaying the debug information. We check the state by looking at that flag and ing it with 40 and branch if not equal EB3. So as I see there, both of those bits are set. When they're set, they jump to EB3, so they're both jumping here. At which point they are, there it is. I've seen it. You notice I'm checking the state of the flag depending on whether or not it only randomizes when it's doing random. When it's chasing, it doesn't randomize. Eventually the random number generator ends up in a state where it doesn't change anymore. It's basically that, and needs to be placed at the top here. Oh, there was a bug. Okay, we'll try this again. So we can see in those two little dots that are appearing here, when they're chasing me, and that's much better. I'll put it back to what values I thought made sense before. And this is how you can create the impression that there's some kind of intelligence going on. They're moving around at random, and then suddenly they decide to go at you. It doesn't take much to create the impression. Oh, he's going after me. He's in the chase state. Not anymore. It looks complex, right? But this is the thing that I used to try and teach my students about this. Maybe I should have got this code out, done this kind of stuff back then when I was teaching students, but they probably wouldn't have paid any attention, to be honest. There was one I remember who just criticised me for being an 8-bit programmer, not really getting the point that actually to program 8-bit took a lot of skill. It ain't the number of bits you got, it's what you do with them. But yeah, it looks a lot more complex, and it's the simplest of things. Just two states. And if they were really moving at this speed, that would be quite difficult to work with. But I think what I'm going to do is leave it like this, but make them slower again by turning on the slicing. You can use your slicing cycle, or just look at slicing. Where were we on here? We do this thing, that whoop. We turn on, my two enemies are now slicing, and so I need to set the slicing cycle. I need to create a little call for managing this. Oh yeah, number letters +2. Well, if I just do plus num enemies, that will work. Yes, they could. I don't remember how I did that before, but that would be the idea. Yes. So this is probably close to the original. I don't know if I've made a chase algorithm in there before, but there we have our two enemies, and they're harmless right now because they don't shoot. But as soon as I start getting them shooting, the difficulty level in the game increases dramatically. I like that. That feels good. Enemy behavior. Get rid of that debug code. All right, so the next thing I need to do is to get the shooting working again. As we can see here, there's definitely something quite broken with shooting. Ship shooting. Shots index. Yes, Alan, it's exactly right. The nasty diamond in Bandits does exactly that. Hey, you've just seen the whole thing. Just what it does though is that, well, first of all, Bandits did use fixed point, so this allowed for, you know, more sophisticated movement, and so what that thing does is you can see that all the enemies use a variant of this. I've always loved this way of dealing with enemies. So they just have a little bit of random movement like this. And then there's a roll, and just at a certain point, it goes straight for you. So yes, it's a different tuning parameters, but otherwise it's identical. And, well, there's also the fact that it's not just identical, like in principle, it's not identical for the fixed point side of things. So there's that as well, right? Whatever. But anyway, could I do that on the... I could do that. I could do that behavior here because I have fixed point now. So I might do that later on. You can see how those early games of mine were very influenced also by each other. It's not a million miles to go from this to Bandits. Bandits was built upon Astro Tracker, where it's like Bandits is a kind of like a cross between... There are inspirations from various sources in Bandits. There's asteroids, obviously. It uses the same ship that was in Astro Tracker. And then it's obviously got a bit of Defender influence in there because you have to protect those things at the bottom of the screen. That those enemies come down and pick them up. So that's obviously inspired heavily by Defender. But then there's also the influence of Tron, because those things that come down like this, they are in fact from Tron. I totally admit it. Back then you could get away with that kind of thing. Though that shape, that thing was actually inspired by Tron. And then there was the enemy that is a cloud of TIE fighters. That was inspired by both Defender and also Star Wars. So yeah, I can't remember which type of explosion that one had. Oh, that one had a Defender style explosion, didn't it? It was multiple particles going. And yeah, the TIE fighters are evil because they fire a lot. There are lots of shots at you. I kind of liked the explosion that I had for Astro Tracker. That was different. Astro Tracker had 8 dots would come out of your ship, spread out like that, approximately in, you know, the compass directions. But each one of those dots that came out was actually 4 dots. And so they would go out so far, and at a certain point, they'd split again. I think that's probably one of my favourite explosions that I did. Ah. So anyway, I think I could totally do a version of Bandits for the BBC for this. I think the graphics wouldn't be as good, but I could probably do the gameplay. Anyway, shooting. Why do the shots not work? If I update the shots, I go num shots and shots index. Even the clear shot doesn't work. Oh, I've got a fan on here. I only just noticed. So, I'm not sure where to go with figuring out these shots. It's like, what could it be? Should I go and set up a test rig again? I mean, we can see though that when I do fire it, it's sort of hanging around the letter B, which suggests that I've got a... Oh, right. Well, there's a thing. I've got branch if not equal, so that's wrong. It should be branch if plus. I think that might change the behavior. It's not going to fix it. That's odd. I was expecting maybe to be A and B now, but it's still only around the letter B. It does some weird stuff. Okay, well, let's look at when the ship shoots. Ship count, shots index. Slow day sprites flag. X. Disable. So this should be... Okay, I'm going to try an RTS here. So it should, when I try to fire, it should just create a sprite, and it did. But you see where it puts them. and eventually it's upset the letter B, and the other one appeared over here. So I think it's just the shot drawing code is just fundamentally broken. So one way to test that is to set up it could be other things as well. Tell you what, let's try disabling the drawing. Again, I think I did this before. I have to ascertain whether it's the behavior that is the problem or the drawing. If I just remove draw shots, what happens when I try to fire? Nothing. So then let's inspect draw shots. We load the number of shots, -1, store it in 84, then we load 84 into the X register, then we load the sprites flags with the proper offset for shots. We AND it with disable, and if it's equal, it jumps here. So what I've done is I've disabled them all the time. Even when I shoot, I just want to see if that creates any issues. Oh, something appeared here. Look at that. There's something. Oh, look. There's some corruption happening even though I have disabled. That's weird because it shouldn't ever draw anything. Very odd. It shouldn't draw anything at all, but I'm getting corruption. All right. Very odd. Let's try doing an RTS on here. I'll just let it run and see if I get any corruption now. And while I'm doing that test, I'm looking at the source code, trying to understand what on earth is going on. The 84 load, no chance. Load, it didn't save anything to anything. And then I commented out the branch if equals, so it does jump DSH4, it decrements 84, and it branches if equal. So there's an issue there. Is this? I've done this a few times now, and I should be plus. Minus. Branch if minus DSH3. Okay, but that can't be the issue. Although that was still wrong, but that wouldn't explain the corruptions. That's the weird thing. I've got no corruption here, okay? Now what I do is I remove that RTS, and then we have load the number of shots, store it in 84. I'm going to put all this back. Whoa. Oops. Just select all that and hit tab and it just format it. Right. I'm going to comment out these macros, which I'm pretty sure it wasn't executing before in that particular case, but maybe pilot error or something. I'm not getting any corruption. It's the XOR, shot XOR with screen. I think I made a mistake when I saw that appear. There's corruption appear. It was pilot error. Okay, that doesn't look like there's any problem, right? I'm not getting any corruption there. So we look at the XOR, shot XOR with screen function, or it's a macro. And how does that work? From to. Wait a minute. I have corruption. How sad is that? I know what's causing that. Let me confirm. I think I know what's causing that. It's because when I was doing the test, I wasn't letting it finish. There, I see. It's when it times out. If I just leave it, boom, I have a mark up here. I hit it again. I have a mark appear here. So the corruption occurs if I let the shot time out. Now I was hitting the button so that shots were never timing out. So, okay. Let's have a look at this shot XOR with screen. The clear shot, which also calls shot XOR with screen, was, yeah, it's this one. If I comment that out, then I should get no corruption on the screen at all. The drawing routine for the shots are just completely broken right now. So if I shoot, no corruption even when the shot times out. So let's look at what I'm doing. The shot bits are just a bit patterned that avoids need for doing any shifting for this very tiny sprite. It's a 2x2 block. At 82 is what I'm storing the address, and I do sprite address 2 to calculate the sprite address, which is here, where the sprite instance is in X and I'm accessing sprites YH and XH. That's the X and Y coordinates of the sprite. I have to take the Y coordinate, I clear the carry flag, I add 8. Why do I add 8? I don't remember now why I add 8. Little offset. I did it for the other one as well. That's a bit odd. Add 8 and store it. Oh, I remember now. That's to do with the... I better put a comment in there. This is for the vertical wrap. As you can see, the vertical wrap. And then add la. I don't really see anything in that that could be the cause of problem. We calculate the address. So I use the shots index, shot previous draw address. Yeah, I think there's something wrong here. What is this logic? Oh no, that looks right. Shot previous draw. Let's look at the shot previous draw address structure. How I allocated that memory. I think the final, it's trying to erase it, but I think the drawing is just completely screwed. So I was turning off the drawing, but I'd forgotten that it would still sort of draw to undraw to clear it at the end. Shot previous draw address, I'm just using 2 bytes per entity. So if the entity happens to be a shot, it's got 2 bytes available to itself. And address 1 and draw address 2, there are 2 buffers. But I only need to use, I don't use the 2 buffers in drawing shots. And how many did I use? No, it's the number of entities times 2. So the low byte of the address is here, and the high byte is number of entities on from there, which is fine. The X is shot. I reference it to shot index. That looks correct. Load the X coordinate of the sprite to get the bottom 3 bits for the amount of shift that we need to do. Shot previous shift plus shot index, comma X, that looks correct. All right, well, you know, one thing I could try is just to hardwire where it calculates the sprite address to. Hey, Mike. Yeah, it's something like that. I'm pretty sure. So I think what I'm going to try to do here, I've got this calculation of this sprite address. Works by, let's just review that. It uses the address here to get 2 bytes in 0 page that it's going to use for internal calculations, and then 8.2 and 8.3 is where it sticks the results. And I'm going to load a immediate 0, store a $82. So I'm going to use the same byte all the time. Load a immediate $88. Store a $83. So having hardwired that, when I shoot, I should just see, even that's not working. That's weird. Oh. You know, I'm not going to do the clearing. I'm going to just do the plotting. It should leave a trail. Well, if it moved, it would leave a trail. I think that might actually make sense. Let me try with clearing, although if I do that, I need... Ah, right. It's going to remember whatever the... Shoot. Well, this is after a full day's work. So I'm getting a bit tired. I'm going to leave it for now, as I'm not really... I'm running out of juice. Oh, there it goes again. That's really weird. I think... Yeah, I think what I need to do is test the drawing routines sort of robustly, step by step, instead of trying to fix it in situ. Anyway, thanks Alan, Mike, everybody else. Thank you for tuning in once again, and I'll be back again tomorrow, hopefully continuing this journey. All right. Take care, everyone. Hope you have a good weekend. And what I need to do now is just switch back to the intro.